Vital links in the chain. 13. Hoovid branchings, Hebrew roots and the Crescent. Exploring the connections between the Hoovids and the Ishmaels and the Middle East in relation to these matters, this chapter is of vital importance to our understanding of the planet and our contribution to the universe. While reading, it would be well to remember Tom's observation that before you criticize the Hoovids, reflect that you might well have Hoovid genes yourself. Irene, please tell us of the sons of heaven marrying the daughters of earth. Tom, you know that in the word book the Bible utilized upon planet Earth, there is an essence of truth, and a great deal of human corruption for keeping humankind in bondage. You know also that the Hoovids and other civilizations came to this planet Earth for colonization, and for the preparation of planet Earth. Also, upon this planet Earth there were those beings that existed and emerged from the essence of the Earth. Then those of the Hoovid and other civilizations, what on the earth they call gods or sons of the gods, merged with the daughters of humanity. This is why all humankind looks to the heavens as the source of their beginning. For they were derived from the heavens, and also there were some civilizations or sub-civilizations that were able to come for the impregnation of women of humankind and to set their stream. And in the time of Akasu the hawk came, and then the Hoovids were chosen for the implantation of individuality and determination, and perhaps an ingredient of tenacity. And over time we saw those elements become stronger, at times to the point of corrupting the beneficial qualities of tenacity, determination and individuality. Then came the Nazarene, who is the head of Hoova, in order to soften that individualism. It was a great necessity, but we do not remove individualism or free will. But we needed to expand compassion, for in the need for survival, compassion was not developed. Compassion is now an element of development. Irene, but this question of compassion goes back to before Abraham, it goes back to the garden, to Akasu. Tom, that is correct, they were Hoovids. You see the problem there was, knowing full well who they were, where they came from, and knowing of the temptation of the opposition, it was a matter of obedience. The Hoovids did not obey, and have not obeyed since, in spite of all the rituals, and continuous asking for the Almighty to intervene, and all the prayers being directed to the Almighty. Higher elements within the Hoovids understand this is pointless, for the Hebrews must take responsibility. But those higher elements, those of the Kabbalah, are not accepted by those who stay in the ritual. Ritual serves a purpose, but not to the exclusion of all other things. There is an error. They believe that they must study the word to the exclusion of all other things, for they feel that will be their connection, and some might not have understanding or compassion for others. They set themselves up on a pinnacle and they do not comprehend that, by doing that, they are putting themselves up there as a target for slaughter. Do you understand? Irene, yes. Tom, most of the civilized world contains these elements, for they have spread and multiplied across planet Earth. Within the nation of Israel they are intensified, but you need to be aware that this has come about through human life, for in the center they are the purest and gentlest. Are we now confusing you? Irene, no, not at all. One of my questions has been, why is there so much focus on the Jewish people throughout the world, and what is going on beneath the surface? Tom, they are the saviors of this planet, they must fulfill their choosing. The Hoovids have come here 3 times to break through the barriers of those of the inbreeding, to help bring elevation to Earth. The concentration of Hoovids is in the nation of Israel, for it is a representative microcosm of the entire planet Earth. And thus Israel is important, for Earth is unique, and no other planet exists like it in the universe. All these years the others have bound it. Irene, so, once the Hoovids are released to their true selves, the other 23 civilizations will then be able to do their work more fully on planet Earth. Tom, that is correct. For they are bound and hindered by this element of obstinacy in the Hoovids. We know of the essence of the Hoovids, the abilities, the genetic code, the DNA of the Hoovids, the life force. When that is released, the universe is released. A very large order. Yes. John, so the Hoovids came 3 times. Are you talking about the first time being Adam and Eve, the second time Abraham, and the third time Jesus? Tom, you may put it like that, but in truth they came as the Eve of Adam, then the implantation was before Abraham and the development was the nation of Abraham. You see. Irene, when did the competition with the Creator begin, and why? And was that also a testing of obedience? Tom, it was a testing of obedience, and it began when they left year before that they listened and viewed. You see, Abraham began the testing, for he knew that he contained within him the essence of all creation. He also knew that he contained within him all knowledge, and he also had this strong connection with creation, and therefore, when asked for the sacrifice of his son, he knew innately that he could do that, for in the acceptance and the doing, it would not be necessary. This was the first lesson. Humankind has forgotten. We have constantly reiterated the importance of acceptance, for then you no longer need to accept. But the descendants of Abraham lost the internal knowledge, they only kept the knowledge of who they were. In their need for survival, they did not accept total obedience. They were always making deals. Where one group would be in awe of creation, the Hoovids would look at the creation as something to be utilized. Irene, that's how they survived. Tom, that is correct. And in the surviving they lost certain elements of awe and obedience, yes. Andrew, Tom, could you explain why you chose the Israelites many years ago for the Yehovah leader, what the plan was, and how it is working out in terms of the religious, historical beliefs that they live under? Tom, yes. They are a nation of people with strength. They came from an area of a planet of strength. Andrew, you mean that they are seed that came from another planet than Earth? Tom, yes. They came from Hoovid. They had strength within their character, and also because the planet from which they came was a warrior-like planet. In their seeding here, they were asked only to be at peace. Andrew, and historically, how was it planned for them to act as catalysts and leaders amongst the peoples of the earth, as they seem to have done? Tom, we asked them to work according to plan. The only problem was at the time of the man called the Nazarene. In their minds, in their culture they knew, and in the seed of their soul. If you understood their origins, you would then understand the factors of doubt and questioning. Part of the reason for their existence on this planet was to overcome that factor. Andrew, that I can understand. Have they been successful or not? Tom, they were not successful at the time of the man you call Jesus. Andrew, was Jesus truly in the model of their expectations of the Messiah? Tom, yes. But because of their nature, they mostly did not recognize him, and throughout the generations, within them lives the knowledge that they have made an error. But because of pride, they will not acknowledge this. Do you understand? Andrew, yes. Tom, so from this aspect we arrive at a nation that is fierce with pride, and from this grew the desire to help their own nation, so in effect our plan was turned around. Yet this is really their salvation, because it shows the nations of earth that they are a nation that will not be conquered, in spite of the fact that they made an error. Every nation has made an error. Andrew, yes. Is there any possibility of rectifying that error and still saving their pride? Tom, they will come to acceptance. Andrew, there is this small matter of names, the difference between he whom we call Yehovah and he whom we call Jesus or Yeshua. Tom, they are one and the same. John, could you tell us about the nation on earth related to Altia? Tom, the primary concern for this planet is the Hoovids. Altia is here to help in the situation. As brother would help another brother. Andrew, yes. But the relationship between what you planned in Egypt as a civilization, and what Moses learned from that, and what he carried into his relationship with Hoovid, and then what was carried by that tradition into the later period, all these things are of great interest. It seems to be a continuous thread, even though much of it has been lost. Am I saying the right things? Tom, you are correct. Andrew, so it was most necessary that Moses learn all the deepest secrets of the Egyptian tradition in order to know who he was and what his role was. Tom, yes. Andrew, which of course he never revealed. I suppose it was forbidden at that time, was it not? Tom, yes. Guest, in the early days of Israel there was much bloodshed and violence, particularly when Joshua and the Jewish people moved into Israel, after their 40 years in Sinai. Can you elucidate why Jews sought to see non-Jewish people as the enemies of God to the extent that they killed so many people when they returned to Israel? Tom, why did the Christians see so many people as the enemies of God when they found non-Christians? Guest, was this not a precedent started by the Jews, perhaps? Tom, that is not so. This is the reasoning why Hoovid announced to Moses that the land they were taken out of belonged to them. What you have not considered is that when the Israelites were given something or it was their place, they were uprooted and enslaved. As they were told by Hoovid of the understanding of one God, and that Israel was their place, and then others did not wish them to enter. Do you understand those that are now? This was early 1992 Serbians and Croatians. Their war is tribal, is it not? Is tribalism not a basic animal instinct? Look at it this way. Is it not tribal with Ishmael? Therefore, why is it permitted for one group to be tribal, but not for another? Is it not true you still have tribal conflict upon this planet even in this time of free thinking? Think of an animal such as a dog. You bring this animal into your home, then you bring another also. In the beginning, when you give them their food, the natural instinct in them will be to snarl and to attack. Is that not true? Now take a human. In those days, and even these days, if they have been beaten and subjected to inadequate life conditions, they are like a dog. It is only when that dog is repeatedly treated well and understands that it will always have food, that it will stop attacking and taking from another. There is one difference with humans. They have that instinct of the dog, and they also have the emotions which dogs do not, therefore that basic instinct also fires up the emotion, then reason does not come in. You still find this in primitive tribes who believe in their one God also, and they say they have been told this and that. So why do you then single out the Hoovids from others? What you should look upon for the Hoovids is this: a small group of people that have survived at all odds, a small group who have continued to educate and forward all of their peoples. This does not say there is perfection or the development of utter graciousness of personality. It is one group or nation that does not hold its own in bondage or as downtrodden. We ask you, why should not the Hoovids have their way? Guest. Yes. May I explain? As far as I understand, when Abraham arrived in Israel he bought a plot of land, and that seems to have been a sensible thing to do politically. There was also Moses, who had taught the Jewish people, in the 10 Commandments, about not killing and not stealing. Can you say something about that? Tom, there were only 2 commandments for the nation of Hoovid. Those 2 are, thou shalt not worship false gods, and thou shalt do unto others as you want others to do unto you. Those are the only 2 commandments given to the nation of Hoovid. There are many rules. The other 8 commandments were given to all the nations. So what has kept the nation of Hoovid all of these millennia is those 2 commandments. So then we ask you, do you now understand? They are the only nation upon planet Earth that daily challenges their God. The only nation that has the impetus to fight with their God. They are not subservient. They challenge as you are now challenging. They challenge their God, their Hoovid, and they will continue to do so, for they know and feel they are one with Him, therefore they have the right to challenge, where all other belief systems do not believe they have the right. It can be a burr in your bottom, can it not? Guest, yes. Now in the history of Israel the people of the north, the lost tribes of Israel, were taken away and dispersed by invaders. Were these people eliminated, or did they mix with the peoples of other countries? Tom, they are all over the world, and as examples, some are in Afghanistan, some in Ethiopia, some in North America, in the native white spirit people, in Phoenicians, in the people of the musical language written of by Caesar, and in the Orientals. There is now the beginning of an understanding of the dispersal and the ingathering. Guest, so this dispersal, could you say it was an unconscious fulfillment of the task that the Jews came to earth to fulfill? Tom, are you attempting to establish that it was acceptable for them to be dispersed because they then fulfilled what they did not fulfill originally? Guest, not exactly, but I am aware that it has been said that the Hoovids came in order to mix with the people of planet Earth. Tom, that is a truism, but they that stayed together did so because the others had been dispersed. If I would have a word of my own to say, would you like to hear? Guest, yes. Tom, I will ask the council if I may say it. They said I may say, but you may not be pleased with it. It is this. We would have one warning to people who are working with higher consciousness, to be very cautious about your attitudes toward the Hoovids, for it may very well be that you are a Hoovid also, yes. What we are attempting to say is that the majority of people that are involved in spiritual elevation contain the genes of Hoovids, so look upon what I say, and how you then place yourselves in that. Council has said I must convey that we also have great frustration, for perhaps in many of your eons we have not explained clearly the situation of the Hoovids. What continues to persist is the negating of Hoovids on planet Earth. Look at all the world, in every nation, and see which negative characteristics developed that made that nation feel different from others. Your nation England believed you were superior to other nations, and your righteousness was the very essence of righteousness. When you have the ingathering of many and the clapping goes all around the world, then all will be free of the bondage of their bringing forth from their civilizations what was of the best.